are you feeling? You got Rigg'd here, and I thank you for checking out the channel. Appreciate it. I was thinking about the early to mid-90s and what an awesome time it was for video games, because sometimes they would release the same game on multiple systems. You weren't tethered down by just one system. You could play the Sega Genesis or the Sega Master System version of Michael Jackson's Moonwalker or Ghouls and Ghosts and plenty others. Or you could play Mario is Missing for the Nintendo or the Super Nintendo, and it's pretty much the same game, maybe just a little bit of a graphical and sound change to accommodate those systems there. But then what about the same game on the same system, but there's different versions of it? Well, that happened a few times. I found 5 instances where it's changed just enough. I'm not talking about just adding a cutscene to Contra or something like that, which did happen for the Famicom. I'm talking about there's a significant change, and I wanted to showcase 5 games for the Nintendo and or Famicom where it's the same game, basically the same name, just a different game. And it's all going to start with one that you probably know. It was a Russian puzzle game that took the world by storm. It was loved by everyone, regardless of race or age or gender. And it's Tetris. Now, there isn't much you can say about the American version of Tetris. It's still a great game. People still love it. I still love it. I'm not very good at it, but I certainly played a lot of this game, especially when it first came out. Now, the Tengen version is the one you want to find. Now, this is the one that's harder to find. You're going to pay a few extra bucks for it still. This is the one they pulled off the shelves because of the lawsuit thing, but it has 2-player simultaneous, has 2-player cooperative, 2-player competitive, even has this mode where you can play with the computer on the same playing field, which is kind of fun. They're going to try to throw you off and everything like that, but this is the one to get, now if you can find it. But then, did you know that there was a Famicom version of Tetris that came out before both of these? And this one is crazy, because in the Famicom version of Tetris, it's the A button that drops the piece, and then the down button is the one that rotates the piece. And when I say drops the piece, I mean it drops it straight down, not just makes it move down faster. It plunks it down there. Now, as you can clearly see, I'm not doing too well to start out with. But then, with a little bit of practice, it didn't take too long at all, you actually find out that it works kind of your favor. You can use that double tap, because I'm faster to double tap with my one hand instead of the other, so you can flip the piece completely around. A lot of competitive Tetris players have talked about this. Me, personally, I'm not a competitive Tetris player, as you can clearly see. But however, it's the same satisfaction, the same sensation, getting a full-on Tetris when you clear 4 lines at the same time. If you can find the Famicom version of Tetris, might be worth picking up just to check it out. You got Afterburner here. Now, Afterburner, couple of differences, couple of changes. Not too bad, though. You see the title screen, of course. Other than this is a Tengen and then Sunsoft, and Sunsoft was the ones that did the Sega games in Japan. A couple of color changes, so even Alien Syndrome has a cool cinematic in the opening. But then when you look at Fantasy Zone, and the version we got to the version they got, now Fantasy Zone is still an awesome game. And it still is for Tengen, even, if you find the American version of it. You fly around and you kill the little pods and whatever the case is. You can pick up the coins and buy upgrades and all that. But then the version they got in Japan, oh my goodness, the colors, the change. I mean, not just the title screen, which has that cool little wobbly woo of the logo there, but it just scrolls smoother, has like more detailed graphics. I think just this is the one to get here. Get the Famicom version of Fantasy Zone if you're a Fantasy Zone fan for sure. Even like the comparison. Got the version on the left is the American one, the version on the right is the Famicom one. The differences, for sure. Even the boss battle, the Famicom version has a more unpredictable pattern on where it's floating to. So if you can get it, if you can find it, this is the one to get. Now, you gotta understand also, in Japan, they had Fantasy Zone 2. We never got Fantasy Zone 2 in America for the Nintendo. But in Japan, for the Famicom, they did come out with Fantasy Zone 2. So I don't think that's very fair at all. But then you also got to understand, in Japan, they had a Famicom version of Altered Beast, as well as a Famicom version for Space Harrier. So you can take that for what it's worth anyway. But either way you look at it, Fantasy Zone for sure. Same game, I mean same name, just 2 different instances of it. Moving back to America, what do we got? Epic TV show. Such a big name for television when it came out. It's all about a helicopter. And the American version, actually isn't that bad. It turns into a game that looks kind of like this, kind of like a flight sim or helicopter sim, I'm not sure. But the one that they got in Japan, yeah, the Famicom version of Airwolf is completely different. And I'm not just talking about the graphics, I'm not talking about the talking to your helicopter buddy or whatever, or even just the quick little cinematic thing. It's a shmup. It's actually a decent shmup. You choose your weapons. I chose poorly. I mean, it doesn't shoot as fast as I'd like it to, but you get a nice little shmup. And then the other button makes you fly faster and gets you through the level quicker. So nothing wrong with that. It's almost like hitting your turbo button. Famicom version of Airwolf might be one to look out for. The Nintendo version is not bad. Famicom, again, I'll give it to the Famicom one. That's the way to go. Let's go back to America on two games with the same name, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Now, both of them came out in America. This is the Taito version, and this is the one I prefer. It has decent-looking cinematic there. I mean, the fact that there's any cinematic, it, has to, have an applause in my book. Kind of a fun game. It almost reminds me of the graphics to, a little like Pitfall for the Atari 2600, but still a pretty decent game. I like it, but then you look at the other version. Now, this is the more collectible version from UbiSoft. And then what you're getting here, that's the best looking one of those, but it looks like the Game Boy version. This is the actual Nintendo version of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade by Ubisoft. And when I first played it, I swear it was just like, oh, this is the Game Boy version, but on that. And even the labels alone, these are the labels side by side. These are my labels from my games. It's the same photo. It's the same publicity shot. So it's hard to tell. But you gotta look at that logo, Taito or Ubisoft. Again, the Ubisoft one, if you find it, it's gonna be worth more value. It's more valuable anyway. What do we got next? Oh, you know this one, I hope. Such a fun game. I love this game. One of my favorite Nintendo games, too. This is Maniac Mansion, if you're not familiar with it. This is one of those games I couldn't believe they came out with for the Nintendo, because I thought the PC version was too big for the Nintendo game. But then, as you have it, a couple years before this version came out, they had one for Famicom, and it looks... it actually looks pretty cute. I totally want to play this game. Unfortunately, it's all in Japanese. Oh my. Well, it has the same opening, kind of. But yeah, this is just a fun looking... This looks like a Famicom game. Oh, how cute. How fun. They haven't quite translated this yet. There are some translation patches to play Famicom games, like if you're playing it through a Retron 5 or something like that. It hasn't happened for this one yet, but... And the screen doesn't scroll. It just goes from screen to screen on this version, too. However, it's still Maniac Mansion. If I could read the menu selection, I could probably actually open the house and look inside, but I don't know which one of these buttons is going to do it, so... Anyway, there you go. Maniac Mansion for the Famicom came out a couple of years before the Nintendo version. And it's just too cute. Well, and there you have it. That's my list anyway, and I'm sure there are more. I mean, with 678 licensed Nintendo games and so many more unlicensed games as well. And then in Japan for the Famicom, what is it, 1,045 games or something like that came out there. So there's a lot of other games, and maybe on other systems too, not just Nintendo or Famicom. So if you know of any that's the same game but changed enough to make a significant difference, I'd love you to leave those comments down in the comments below. I thank you for watching. Big thanks to my Patreons as well. And I thank you for being a part of this, man. Such a fun video, too. So thanks for watching again. You can check out my other videos as well. Maybe you want to be able to create your own hacks or create your own repros or something like that. You can check those out in those things right there. So thanks for watching again. John Riggs here. Till next video. Take care. We'll see you.